Hey everyone, and welcome to the Big History Quiz. We have some really fun questions lined up to see just how much you know about the past. So get your thinking caps on. You ready? Let's dive right in. Okay, so we're kicking things off with round one, and it's called Places of Memory. This is all about the different ways we remember our history, from those big towering structures to special buildings. So let's get to our first question.
So, picture those large, really impressive structures you sometimes see in city parks or on top of hills. What are they actually for? Simply put, what is the purpose of a monument?
And the answer is they're built to remember important historical events. You can think of them as these giant physical reminders of moments or ideas that we think should never be forgotten. If you got that right, you're off to a great start.
Okay, let's get a little more specific now. We're looking for a date. The famous Tall Monument, which means the language monument, is a huge landmark in South Africa. Any idea what year it was officially unveiled? That's it, 1975. This incredible structure, which is dedicated to the Afrikaans language, was opened up to the public that year. A pretty significant piece of the country's history. Well done if you knew that one. Now, let's talk about a different kind of historical marker. So, if monuments are mostly for remembering events, what about statues? What do they usually show? Well, the key difference here is that statues are typically made to look like specific figures. It could be an important person or sometimes even an animal that has some historical significance. So a good way to remember it is monuments are for events and statues are for individuals or figures. All right, for our last question in round one, we're going to head indoors to a place that is literally packed with history. What exactly is a museum? A museum is a place that displays artifacts, old objects that people actually used, all to teach us about the past. They're kind of like treasure chests of history, right? They let us see and connect with things from a totally different time. And that wraps up round one. Great job so far.
Welcome to round two. Now we're going to focus in specifically on South African history. We'll be touching on a bit of everything from politics to geography, and we'll build on some of the ideas we just talked about.
Kicking off this round with a really big one. The year 1994 is one of the most significant dates in modern South African history. But do you know why? It's because 1994 marked the year of South Africa's very first truly democratic election. I mean, for the first time in the country's history, every single citizen, no matter their race, had the right to vote. Just a huge landmark moment for freedom. Okay, let's go from a key date to a key number. The map of South Africa has definitely changed over the years. So how many provinces does the country have today? The correct answer is 9. South Africa is currently divided into 9 different provinces. Go ahead and give yourself a pat on the back if you knew that one. History isn't just about big events. It's also about how things like place names change over time. So this is a two-part question. Can you name the old names for the city we now call Polokwane and the town of Bela Bela? Let's check it out. Polokwane used to be called Petersburg, and Bela Bela was known as Warm Baths. This is such a great example of how history is a living thing, isn't it? Even the names on our maps change to reflect a new era. Our next question is about a really powerful tool for making change throughout history. When people come together to demand that their voices be heard, what do we call that? What is a protest? A protest is exactly that. It's when a group of people come together to publicly show they disagree with something and to demand that it changes. It has been one of the most powerful ways for communities to make their voices heard all throughout history. Okay, let's switch gears for a second and think like a historian. All these facts we've been talking about, they were all uncovered through a specific process. Can you name just one step you take when you're doing a history investigation? Well, for this one, there are actually a bunch of correct answers. If you said anything like gather sources, study sources, compare information, or make a conclusion, you are absolutely spot on. Any one of those is a super important part of being a history detective.
And that leads us perfectly into our final question of the whole quiz. So we know the steps of an investigation, but what's the ultimate goal? Why do we do them? What is the purpose of an investigation? The whole purpose is to look at all the evidence, the sources, to find out the facts of what really happened. I mean, at its heart, that's what studying history is all about, piecing together this giant puzzle to find the truth. And with that, you've finished the quiz.
You did an awesome job. Seriously, whether you got every single one right or you just learned something new, you're a history star.
I'll leave you with one last thing to think about. Based on everything we just talked about, what event from our world today do you think deserves its own monument in the future? Something to chew on. Thanks so much for playing along.